It was a Tuesday. The kind no one remembers. Gray light, stale coffee, and too many voices trying to sound important. They had called a family alignment meeting. Their words, not mine. Dad's idea, probably. Mom arranged the table. Of course, everyone had a seat, assigned. Little name cards folded over white napkins. Mine wasn't missing. It was just placed further, at the end of the table. A little off-center, like they ran out of symmetry and chose me to balance it. I didn't say anything. They think I don't notice small things. I do. There was a financial advisor sitting next to my sister, the same one I had spoken to 3 times last month, fixing the mortgage delay on the house I never lived in. She smiled at me, polite and brief, the kind of smile you give someone you're told not to ask about. My sister's kids were running in and out of the room. She apologized, loudly. Mom said, "Oh, don't worry, it's what real life looks like." Real life. That was the word she used. I looked at the spreadsheet they handed around. Projected costs for next year. My name was on the payment column, but not the agenda. I kept quiet. I was paying for a story I wasn't even written into. Then came the introductions. The advisor asked each one to share a few words. My brother-in-law spoke of providing emotional stability. My sister talked about raising future leaders. When they got to me, Dad leaned in and said, "This is Anna. She's single, no kids, but she's always been generous. Always been generous, that's all." My hands didn't move. I just stared at the paper in front of me. The numbers were still, no chaos there. Unlike the table, there were laughs. Someone made a joke about how I was the only one who didn't need a babysitter or a tax deduction. Everyone chuckled, even Mom. Softly, I smiled too. Not because it was funny, but because silence would have been louder than I wanted just yet. Then something odd happened. The advisor, Hannah, I think, pointed at line 7 on the chart. "Wait," she said. "This maintenance contract for the lake house? It's signed under Anna's LLC?" The room went quiet for 1 second too long. Mom blinked fast. "Oh yes, she helped out once. Once, I had been paying that bill for 5 years. Quietly, consistently, because Dad was behind. And Mom had said she was too tired to deal with banks. The chair I was in creaked slightly as I shifted. Not because I was uncomfortable, but because I wanted them to remember that I was there. Just in case they forgot. They moved on. Talked about upcoming birthdays, holidays, things to align. I nodded when expected, smiled when required. Said nothing unnecessary, but I noticed how no one looked me in the eye after that question. Not even Hannah. When the meeting ended, I stayed seated. Everyone else left their coffee cups half full. My cup was empty. I got up slowly, gathered the documents, straightened the edge of the tablecloth near my seat, the one slightly pulled away from the center, and walked out without a word. I don't remember the first time I felt small. I just remember always being next, not last, not ignored, just after. My sister Claire was the bright one. Photos of her in school plays, ballet shows, spelling bees, all framed and centered. I had a certificate once. Perfect attendance. It stayed folded in a kitchen drawer until it got oil stains. Mom used to say I was so easy. Because I didn't cry when left alone, because I didn't ask for the pink plate, because I didn't fight back when Claire took my hairbrush, my books, my seat in the car. They thought silence meant comfort. It just meant I had stopped asking. There was this Christmas. Claire got a karaoke machine. I got socks. Grandma noticed. She leaned toward me while everyone was singing and whispered, "You don't have to be loud to be seen." Just sharp. I didn't understand it at the time, but I kept that line like a seed in my pocket. Dad worked a lot. When he was home, he was tired. When he was tired, he was mean. Only to me, somehow. If I spilled something, I was careless. If Claire broke something, it was an accident. If I asked questions, I was talking too much. Claire was just curious. I used to sit in the hallway and listen to them talk in the living room, not out of interest, just to hear my name. Once, but it rarely came. Once I remember asking Mom if she thought I was special. She paused, then said, "Well, you're smart. You always manage. That was her answer, that I manage. So I did. I managed not to cry when they forgot my birthday dinner. I managed to share a room with Claire even when she taped a "Do Not Enter" sign on my side of the closet. I managed to fold her laundry when she was sick and got the credit for being so mature. Even at 10, I understood something nobody told me. The one who absorbs the damage becomes the most invisible. Middle school didn't change much. Claire was popular, of course. I joined the yearbook club because it was quiet. I liked hiding behind the camera, where no one had to smile for me. At home, I started paying attention to numbers, receipts, bills, the way Mom grimaced when opening mail, how Dad muttered about cutting corners. I didn't offer to help. I just filed it all away. By 13, I was balancing the checkbook when they weren't looking. By 14, I was calling utility companies pretending to be Mom, because they messed it up again. They never questioned how things got fixed. They just said, "Glad someone in this house has a brain." But when Claire needed money for a school trip, they asked me if I wanted to contribute, as if I were just lucky to be there. So I did, quietly, and they called me generous. There was a teacher once, Ms. Lane. She taught English and smelled like peppermint. She pulled me aside after class one day and said, "You write like someone who's seen too much." I said nothing. She gave me a journal, hardcover, blue. Inside the first page, she wrote, "Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Use it well." I kept that journal for years. It was the only place I existed in full sentences. In high school, Claire got into pageants. I got a job. I stocked shelves after school while she practiced walk turns and hair flips. At family dinners, Mom would say, "Claire has such presence." Then look at me and say, "Anna's dependable." Presence. Dependable. One sparkles. The other sustains. Guess which one gets thanked in speeches. Once, Claire forgot to pick up Mom's medication. I drove 2 hours after work and dropped it off before they even noticed it was missing. I found the bottle later in the kitchen. With Claire's name written in black marker, she had taken the credit. Again, I didn't say a word. Some debts stay quiet, but they collect interest. High school is where the hierarchy became official. Claire dated quarterbacks. I managed the team's budget. She wore corsages. I adjusted the lights backstage at the dance. Once, I overheard her telling her friends, "My sister? Oh, she's like, useful? Like a planner or something? Useful." That word stayed. Not beautiful. Not funny. Useful. At dinner, Dad always asked Claire about her dates. Mom asked about her outfits. No one asked me anything. So I asked myself, if I vanished tomorrow, would they notice before the bills were due? I got a scholarship. Full ride. Not for sports, not for charm, for numbers, analytics. No one came to the award ceremony. They said it was the same day as Claire's regional pageant. I smiled in the photo anyway. Later, when I showed Mom the scholarship letter, she said, "See, you always land on your feet, like a cat, like a creature that survives falls, not someone who builds ladders." College was an escape, not from them, from needing to be seen. There, I became efficient. Took night classes and worked part-time. Finance office, quiet job, quiet people. When Claire called to say she was taking a gap year to find herself, I was helping students find funding to stay. I mailed money home sometimes. Not because they asked, but because I saw the warnings on the utility apps. Once, Mom texted, "Thanks for covering the heating." It was Claire's turn, but you know how she is. I did, and I didn't reply. During my junior year, I came home for Thanksgiving. It had been months. Claire hugged me like I was a neighbor. Dad said I looked tired but successful. I brought wine. No one opened it. At the dinner table, I noticed there were 5 seats, 6 people. They had added a folding chair from the garage for me. It wobbled. I said nothing. Sometimes the symbolism is so loud I don't have to speak. Claire's boyfriend sat next to me. He worked in sales, told long stories. At one point he said, "So you're the smart one, the numbers girl. I nodded. He grinned. Well, at least you'll always be employable, right? Everyone laughed. Except me. Mom passed the gravy to Claire first, then him, then Dad, then herself, then my sister's best friend who didn't have anywhere to go this year. I was last, and the gravy was cold. That night, I slept in the laundry room. Claire had turned my old bedroom into a vanity studio. There was a framed photo of her on the nightstand. None of me. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling and remembered a line from Ms. Lane's journal. The one who listens always knows, more than the one who speaks. So I listened. I listened as Claire got praised for bringing a pie from the store, as Dad talked about cutting corners again, as Mom said, I don't want to worry about money this year. I looked at the bill for the pie. It was on the counter. $42. I had just sent them $800. A week later, I got a voicemail from Claire. Hey, could you maybe help with Mom's car insurance this month? She's overwhelmed and I have stuff. I transferred the amount. Didn't reply. She texted, You're a lifesaver. I told her you'd come through. Come through. Like a backup generator, not a person. By the time they said thank you, I had already forgotten what I gave. Because giving wasn't the point, being seen was, and that never came. By the time I was 31, I had 2 degrees, my own apartment, and a company registered in my name. They still called me available, not accomplished, not respected, available. Claire had 2 kids by then. She lived 15 minutes from our parents. But when Mom needed to go to her cardiology checkup, it was me they called. Because you work remote, right? I didn't correct them. I was in between client calls when I drove Mom across town. She didn't say thank you. She said, You drive like your father. Then spent the whole ride talking about Claire's new patio furniture. I looked at the clock. I had 23 minutes until my next meeting. I missed it. But apparently, the chairs were waterproof. That month, I paid the overdue trash collection bill for their house. Again. When I forwarded the receipt, Mom replied with, Ugh, I keep forgetting. You're such a lifesaver. I read it twice. Then archived it. Once I asked Dad if they had ever considered consolidating their debt. He said, Don't lecture me. You sound like a banker. I was a financial strategist, but never in that house. Then came the lake house. It was supposed to be sold. Too expensive to maintain. Too full of mold and memory. But Claire had memories there. She begged to keep it for the kids. Mom called me, said, Just until summer. Help us with the fees and then we'll sell. That was 4 years ago. I paid for the water system, the property taxes, the emergency roof fix. Every invoice had my company name, not out of pride, out of precaution. I was never part of the family photos, but I made sure my name was in the IKEA contracts. 2 years ago, Claire's husband left. Suddenly, I was invited over more. Join us for dinner, Mom said. Bring your insights. They meant my wallet. Claire cried over pasta about bills, daycare, loneliness. I nodded. I picked up the check. They said, You're such a blessing. I wasn't blessed. I was tired. Then came the restructure. Dad had a friend in real estate. They wanted to form a family holding, centralize the assets, make things simpler. There was a meeting, the one you already saw. I showed up 5 minutes early. My seat was already placed. A little back, a little slanted, like it had been added at the last minute. On purpose or not, I don't know. But I felt it. Even chairs have hierarchies, and mine knew its place. 2 weeks after the meeting, I received a call. Not from my mother. Not from Claire. Not from Dad. It was Hannah, the financial advisor. Her voice was polite, but with that slight undertone. The one people use when they've seen something they weren't supposed to. She said, Hi, Anna, we're finalizing the asset alignment for the family trust. Just wanted to confirm something. I waited. She cleared her throat. The lake house title. It's fully under your LLC. You've maintained every expense line. There's no contribution from anyone else. I let the silence stretch. Then said, "Yes, that's correct." Pause. "Right, I wasn't aware." I smiled, but only with my mouth. "You weren't supposed to be." A few days later, she requested a formal call with the family. "All parties present," she said. Claire brought muffins, Mom wore perfume, Dad wore his authority. I wore silence. The call began with formalities, financial notes, projections. Then came the slide deck. Line by line, Hannah read the asset titles, the second property, the car lease, the lake house. She paused, then said, "Ownership is listed exclusively under Anna F. Holdings as established 5 years ago." The room shifted. Not physically, emotionally. Claire blinked. Mom reached for her water. Dad stared. No one said anything. So Hannah continued. "All taxes, repairs, and management fees trace back to the same entity, which means technically the property falls outside the family trust. Technically." That word landed like a thud. Claire turned her head first. "Wait, so it's not part of the restructure?" Hannah smiled. "I'm afraid not. It was never listed in the shared equity file." Mom's voice was thin. "But she was just helping. She said she'd help." I kept my eyes on the table. Let the silence rise. "They built a house on my name and forgot who held the key," Hannah added, as if reading my thoughts. "The legal owner decides whether or not to contribute it to the trust. If she chooses not to, the property remains." Separate. That's when they all looked at me, all at once. Claire's face. Disbelief, not anger. Mom, that nervous half-smile she used when caught. Dad, unreadable, maybe calculating. I didn't blink, I just asked, "Is that all, Hannah?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, that concludes the review." I clicked the leave button. Didn't wait for them to speak. Didn't wave. Later that day, I got a text from Mom. "Can we talk? This doesn't feel like you." I didn't answer. That evening, I returned to the lake house. Just to sit. The kitchen light was flickering. I noted it for repair. On the counter, the same envelope Hannah had printed for me. I folded it neatly and slid it into a drawer. Not to hide, to file. Some truths don't need confrontation. They just need to be written where no one expected. I didn't hear from them for 4 days. Then came the indirect messages. Claire posted a photo of the lake house. Caption: "So many memories here. Hope we can keep this space in the family." I didn't like it, didn't comment, just noted the filter she used. Warm and faded. Not true to color. Even their nostalgia had to be edited. Mom called once. Didn't leave a voicemail. Then texted, "I'm just confused. This feels like punishment." It wasn't. Punishment requires anger. I had none left. Just clarity. On Saturday, I ran into Mr. Halverson, the neighbor 2 doors down from my parents. He adjusted his glasses and said, "Heard about the lake place. Thought it was under your dad's name." I smiled. "No, it never was." He looked at me a long second, then nodded. "Well, makes sense now." Later that week, Claire sent a voice note. Short, hesitant. "I didn't know you were paying everything, I guess. I assumed, like we all did. I'm sorry, Anna." Then, "Do you still want to come to Lily's birthday? She keeps asking for you." I stared at the waveform, didn't play it again. Sunday morning, Mom invited me for lunch. Just a quick one, no pressure. I went, not for reconciliation. For presents, I wore navy, clean lines, no earrings, just a watch. Time was what they had taken most freely. At the table, my chair was in its usual place, no longer off-center, but still not next to anyone. Claire handed me a slice of quiche, then said softly, "We should have asked more questions." I nodded, didn't answer. Dad barely spoke, but I noticed his eyes kept going to the window. Avoidance was his fluency. Mom refilled my glass twice, Water, not wine. She asked about my work, my schedule. Her tone was unfamiliar, formal, respectful, unsteady. After dessert, Lily tugged my hand. She wanted to show me a drawing. It was a house, with a tiny figure by the door. She said, "That's you, because you bring the keys." No one in the room understood the weight of that line, but I did. Even a child could see what they kept erasing. When I left, I didn't hug anyone, just smiled. Put on my coat. Claire walked me to the door. She hesitated, then said, "If you ever want to explain, I'm here." I looked at her, gently. I already did. Then I stepped outside, into the quiet. They spoke of unity, of building legacy, of Claire's children as future inheritors. No one mentioned who had paid the county fines, or who kept the lights on in the house no one visited. When the advisor asked about the deed on the lake house, there was a pause. Then Mom said, "It's all in the family anyway." That night, I drove home in silence, hands tight on the wheel, radio off. When I got to my building, I sat in the car for 10 full minutes, looking at the envelope Hannah had handed me, the one with the latest document draft. My name was there, tucked under secondary contributor. I took a pen, crossed it out, and wrote, "Primary owner, verified." I didn't send it back. Not yet. Some truths need to sit in silence before they're seen. 2 months later, Hannah sent over the finalized documents. Everything clean, legal, undeniable. The lake house was no longer part of the discussion. It was just mine. She asked if I wanted to draft a transfer letter, include it in the family trust. "Keep the peace," she said. I wrote something else instead, a one-line email. "Let's keep things clear." I never brought it up again, neither did they. But the tone changed, not out of guilt, out of adjustment. At dinners, my name was spoken slower. When I spoke, they listened longer. They didn't love me more. They just realized I had a pen in my hand the entire time. That fall, I returned to the lake house, alone. There was a breeze through the upstairs bedroom. Dust in the corners. A faint stain on the floor from when Claire spilled red juice in 2003. I didn't clean it. Didn't fix anything that day. Just walked through each room, touching doorknobs, opening drawers. I found the old guest book by the fireplace. A blue leather-bound one Claire had bought for memories. Most pages were empty, but on the back flap someone had scribbled in pencil. "Anna brought the batteries. Again." No date. No name. I closed it. Sometimes being written down is enough. Weeks passed. Then one morning I got a card in the mail. No sender name on the envelope. Inside, a photo of the lake house, taken from the outside, through the trees. On the back, in careful handwriting, "Thank you for keeping the lights on, even when we didn't know we were sitting in the dark." No signature. I didn't smile. I just placed it in the drawer, next to the maintenance receipts and the deed. People still call me dependable, still assume I'll come through. But now they hesitate. Now they ask. Now they wait for my answer. Last week, Claire called. She was planning another family meeting, said they'd love for me to join, asked what time worked best for me. I looked at the calendar, then said, "I won't be attending this one." She didn't ask why, just said, "Okay, I understand." I hung up, walked to the window, watched the leaves move. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the one standing outside the house I paid for. I didn't need them to know everything. I just needed one thing, to no longer be explained. That was enough. If you've ever sat at a table that you paid for, but felt like a guest, if your silence was called kindness, but they never once said thank you, you're not alone. Tell me in the comments, what did they forget you did that you never reminded them of? This space is for you. The ones who held it all together and were still left out. Stay quiet. Stay sharp.